You've probably seen it, right? One day, there's an article telling you, just step away from the daily grind. Do it now. Embrace the freedom. Live your best life.
Yeah, go, go, go.
And then, like, hours later, another piece pops up insisting, no, no, delaying retirement is way smarter, safer, maybe the only sensible option right now.
It's completely contradictory advice, isn't it?
It's a huge contradiction. And it leaves so many of us just staring at our screens wondering, okay, when is the actual best time to finally make that leap?
Well, and it's more than just a spreadsheet question, This decision, it really hits the core of financial security, sure, but also emotional well-being, even our social lives.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the numbers in your account. It's about life itself, right? How do we choose to spend these really valuable years we have?
Exactly. And that's really our mission today. We're going to do a deep dive into this huge life decision. We'll try to unpack the really compelling arguments on, both sides of the coin, explore the pros and cons that sometimes get lost in all that noisy advice.
Right, cut through the static a bit.
Yeah. Our goal is to help you cut through that noise, understand the nuances, hopefully gain some real clarity on what might be the best decision for your own journey, your situation, your idea of a good life.
And I think people should prepare for maybe some aha moments today, because we're going to look at how time, surprisingly, might just be your single greatest asset. And we'll talk about the health benefits, often overlooked, of stepping back when you're ready, and kind of paradoxically, how delaying might actually unlock more freedom later on.
But we also have to confront let's be honest, the stark realities of retirement expenses. And trust me, they're almost always higher than you think.
Always.
And the real value of job security in this, well, pretty volatile economy we're in, and why your friends, your community, your social connections might actually be more vital to your happiness than any big savings account number.
It's the whole picture: finance, psychology, real life. It's the full spectrum. So, okay, let's get started. All right, let's dive in. We're going to start by really looking at the siren song of early retirement. There are some genuinely compelling reasons to step away sooner rather than later. And the first one, for me, it feels like the biggest one, maybe almost philosophical. Time. It's so fundamental, isn't it? We spend so much energy trying to optimize our money, our assets, but time is genuinely your most valuable asset, and it's completely non-renewable.
Totally.
You can, theoretically always make more money given the right situation, effort, luck maybe, but you can never make more time. Once a minute ticks by, it's just gone forever.
Right.
And a really striking point here in the context of retirement isn't just that time is finite, it's about its effect on experience. Think about it like this. Maybe having an extra decade of leisure when you're in your 70s sounds great, and it could be beautiful. But it might also be limited by, your physical capacity, what you can actually do. That same decade, though, if you have it in your 50s,
Wow.
that could unlock high adventure travel, starting a new business that needs energy, long hiking trips, really physically demanding volunteer work, maybe?
Things you just couldn't do later.
Exactly. It's not just more time. It's qualitatively different time, especially if you step away feeling vigorous and healthy.
Right. It's the ultimate finite resource. And yeah, the quality of that time arguably diminishes as we age. And retiring early, assuming you're financially set up for it, it just opens up this whole new world of possibilities. It gives you that genuine freedom to finally go after those passions you've maybe dreamt about for years, but you just never had the bandwidth, right?
Or to take those long trips that always seemed impossible with work schedules and limited vacation time.
Yeah, the 2-week vacation trap. Totally. Or, and I think this is so underrated, just indulging in pure relaxation, like actually doing nothing for a whole week if you feel like it, without that crushing pressure of work hanging over you or feeling guilty about emails piling up.
Removing the guilt factor, that's huge.
It is. And the beauty here is the lifetime advantage. The sooner you transition, the more those precious, healthier, more energetic years you gain to actually enjoy the fruits of your labor, to live life on your own terms, without someone else's demands dictating your schedule.
The implication is just profound, really. It's about maximizing that period of pure, unconstrained enjoyment, personal agency. You're shifting from a life dictated by external stuff clocks, bosses, deadlines, to one that's shaped entirely by what you want. It's not just escaping work. It's stepping into a life you design.
But here's the really crucial caveat for you listening. This powerful benefit, this immediate freedom, this higher quality time, it mainly applies if you've really saved diligently, you've done the work, and you're genuinely on the fence. Work a few more years or stop now.
Right. You're at that decision point.
Yeah. It's much less applicable, and honestly, it could be really dangerous. If you're still scrambling to hit your savings goals or you're worried about making ends meet month to month, this is really for those near the finish line who've put in the effort,
Yeah.
not someone still deep in the marathon of saving.
And that leads us perfectly into the second big reason for early retirement: getting freedom from burnout.
Oh, yeah.
A long career, especially in demanding fields, I mean, it can lead to serious emotional and physical burnout. That daily grind just wears you down, mentally, physically. It often shows up as chronic fatigue, feeling detached, maybe losing passion for things you used to love.
Think about it, right? The constant deadlines, those endless meetings that just drain your soul. The pressure to perform, always be on, always feel like you're behind. Just escaping that daily pressure cooker. It can dramatically lower your stress levels. It lets you finally focus on your well-being, emotional and physical, in a real way.
Holistically, yeah.
And that shift, it can lead to a huge transformation in your overall health,
Yeah.
especially as you get older, because chronic stress just hammers away at you,
Mhm.
speeds up aging.
It really does. And it's interesting, you hear this common regret from a lot of retirees. Their biggest lament isn't retiring too soon. Overwhelmingly, it's that they worked too long.
I've heard that too.
They sacrificed moments, experiences, time with people, things they can just never get back. People often put work ahead of family events, seeing friends, holidays, just quality time with loved ones, always telling themselves, oh, I'll do it later.
When things slow down, which they
Well,
never do.
Exactly. So early retirement, if you're prepared, it gives you the chance to reclaim those vital experiences, to actually live, not just, get through the week. It's about getting back to what really nourishes you before it's genuinely too late.
Speaking of living,
Mm.
the third reason for potentially retiring early is about redefining what work even means. Retirement doesn't have to mean stopping everything or just sitting around.
No, not at all.
For many, it's this unique opportunity to redefine work on their own terms, shifting from obligation to choice.
Which begs the question, right? If you're not tied to needing that full-time paycheck anymore, what does meaningful engagement look like for you? Maybe you take a part-time job in something you've always dreamed of.
Like what?
Oh, I don't know, working in a cool little music store or an independent bookstore, or maybe being a tour guide somewhere you love. Or you could use the skills you built up over your career, do some freelancing, consulting, maybe even teach a class. Earn a bit of money entirely on your own terms. No awful commute, no office politics.
Right, none of the soul-crushing parts.
Hopefully.
Or, and this is where I think it's really inspiring, the whole hobby to hustle idea.
Ah, yes.
We heard this great story recently from someone who retired about a year ago.
Mhm.
She always loved arts and crafts, making jewelry, little decorative things, just as a hobby. Post-retirement, she decided, you know what? I'm going to try and make this a thing. Started going to craft shows, set up an online shop, selling her creations. And she's doing something she absolutely loves that fills her with creativity and purpose. And she's still earning a nice little income from it.
That's
It
fantastic.
just highlights how much time is lacking for those kinds of passions when you're stuck in that demanding full-time job vortex, right? It transforms retirement from just an ending into a whole new beginning of doing purposeful stuff you actually enjoy on your terms.
And often people find more fulfillment in that kind of work than they ever did in their main career because it's driven by, internal motivation, not just external pressure or obligation. It's about building a portfolio of activities. Some might make money, some might not, but they all contribute to your well-being.
A really big one for me, maybe my favorite because it impacts everything else, the significant health benefits. Getting rid of that chronic stress, long hours, high pressure, constant worry. It leads to chronic stress. And we know, the science is clear, this contributes to serious health problems. We're talking heart disease, metabolic issues, faster cognitive decline, even a higher risk for things like Alzheimer's. The list is long.
It really is. And when you retire early, a lot of that chronic stress can genuinely just dissipate, often pretty quickly.
You feel it lift off.
Yeah. And that leads to profound improvements in well-being, better sleep, less inflammation in your body, maybe clearer thinking, a stronger immune system. Your body just finally gets a chance to heal and decompress from years of being pushed. It can rebalance itself. Imagine the positive effect of getting consistent, good sleep, having time for regular exercise, maybe meditation, things that are hard to fit in with a 9-to-5 grind.
Absolutely. But, and this is a critical but, we cannot overlook this health benefit. It is completely contingent on financial security.
Ah, yes, the big caveat.
If early retirement means you're constantly, like, gnawing, worried about where the next dollar's coming from, or you're pinching pennies so hard you can't afford good food or doctor visits. That stress isn't going away.
Nope, it just changes form.
Exactly. It'll probably increase stress, not reduce it. It becomes a different, but just as damaging kind of anxiety. So this health benefit, it really only happens when you've planned well, you feel confident about your finances. Otherwise, you could actually be making things worse for your health, not better.
Precisely. It really underscores that financial preparedness isn't just about comfort. It's like foundational for your physical and mental health in retirement. It's the ultimate preventative medicine in a way.
Yeah, well said. And finally, the fifth reason to think about early retirement. It's a bit sobering, but it's undeniable. Embracing the present, because tomorrow is unpredictable.
The fundamental truth.
Yeah, no one is promised tomorrow. The longer we live, the closer we inevitably get to the end. It's not morbid, it's just reality.
Yeah.
Reality we often try to push away.
Which naturally makes you ask, well, how should I prioritize the limited healthy time I do have? Retiring sooner simply grants you more years to genuinely enjoy life. It increases the likelihood of a longer, more fulfilling retirement just because you start earlier. When your energy is likely higher, your body's more capable. There's this concept, you could call it the peak experience window. Certain activities, maybe backpacking through Asia, learning to ski, doing really physical volunteer work, they're just better. Or maybe only possible when you have that youth and vitality. Sacrificing those years could mean missing those opportunities forever.
We've all heard those stories, haven't we? They're really poignant ones.
Heartbreaking ones, yeah.
People who win the lottery or they plan meticulously for retirement, they count down the days, and then they pass away within months, maybe a year, of finally stopping work. They never really get to experience that retired life they saved for, those dreams they held on to.
Ugh, it's tragic.
It's just heartbreaking to think about building towards a future that never quite arrives. The tragedy is often sacrificing those younger, more vibrant years for a future that's never guaranteed. Working too long, always saying just one more year. You risk ending up in retirement with health issues or low energy that stop you doing what you could have done earlier.
Yeah, the sad stories are often from people who just pushed it too far, held on to that one more year mantra, and then couldn't enjoy what they worked so hard for.
So this point, like the others, really hits home for those who have saved, who are right there on the cusp, ready to enjoy what they built. Okay? That is a powerful, powerful case for stepping away early. Time, health, living in the present. It's incredibly alluring. But life, as we know, it's rarely that simple.
Never one-sided.
So let's pivot now. Let's look at the equally strong arguments for maybe a more patient, perhaps more prudent approach. Because there are just as many valid reasons, maybe even more pressing ones today, to consider waiting, delaying retirement.
And I think the number one reason, especially right now, in this global climate, it's navigating all this economic uncertainty.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
There are just so many unresolved questions. Persistent inflation, what's happening with tariffs and consumer goods, the cost of living keeps climbing faster than wages, and stock portfolios, well, who knows? The world, financially, it just feels a lot less predictable than it did even 5-10 years ago.
It's undeniably true. We're living through some really volatile times. People are worried, recession talk, market instability. We've seen huge swings lately, interest rates going up.
Yeah.
All sorts of macroeconomic stuff swirling around.
Yeah, I guess.
And all of that naturally can make you really second guess if now is the right time to pull the plug on your income stream. So for those who aren't totally sure about their financial readiness, or maybe for people who actually like their jobs, riding out this period of uncertainty for a few more years, that could be a really wise choice.
It's like strategic patience, isn't it? It provides a buffer, lets you see how these big economic factors play out before you make such a huge life-altering decision. And, zooming out a bit, it's about minimizing that sequence of returns risk.
Yeah, explain that quickly.
That's the danger that a big market downturn right after you retire could just devastate your nest egg, and you don't have time or new income to recover. By delaying, you give your investments more time to potentially bounce back from dips, keep growing, provide a stronger foundation for when you do finally stop working. It's a form of active risk management when certainty is just not available.
That makes a lot of sense. Which brings us right to the second reason to consider waiting.
Yeah.
Job security and stability.
The value of a paycheck.
Yeah. In an unstable economy, holding onto your job gives you that vital security and, let's be honest, a consistent, predictable paycheck. That's something a lot of people who are out of work right now would love to have.
Absolutely. And while, sure, no job is guaranteed forever, having stable employment right now puts you at a huge advantage compared to people facing layoffs, struggling to find new work, maybe having to take pay cuts.
It's tough out there.
The job market can be incredibly challenging, especially for older workers who might, unfortunately, face age discrimination. Being in a secure, well-paying job, maybe with decent benefits like health insurance, which gets way more expensive as you age, that's a major asset.
So if you actually appreciate your job, you're earning good money. And key point, you have a reasonable work-life balance. You're not completely fried.
Right, you still have a life.
Then staying on for a few more years lets you keep building those savings while you wait for the economic picture to hopefully get clearer. This really makes sense if you're not totally confident in your savings yet, or if you genuinely get satisfaction and purpose from your work.
And there's a psychological benefit too, beyond just the money. That continued stability, that sense of purpose, the routine, the identity that a job provides, that can be really valuable during uncertain times.
Keeps you grounded.
Yeah, it provides structure, a reliable social network, things that can actually be hard to replace immediately when you retire. For some people, the predictability of a work schedule is actually a comfort, not a burden.
Okay, which flows perfectly into our third reason for delaying, the power of catch-up savings.
Ah, the magic catch-up years.
Exactly. Delaying retirement gives you invaluable extra time to boost your savings, especially if you feel like you need to catch up on your contributions. And let's face it, a lot of people feel like they're behind.
Oh, absolutely. It begs the question, doesn't it? Are you really on track, or are you just kind of hoping you are?
Right.
Because after you hit a certain age, usually 50, you can often contribute significantly more to your retirement accounts, 401k, IRAs, than younger folks. These catch-up contributions are a really powerful tool. They can accelerate your savings and help you feel much more financially secure before you finally call it quits.
Even just a few extra $1,000 a year, right? Especially if your investments do reasonably well and you get that compounding effect over those last crucial years, it can make a huge difference.
A substantial difference. For instance, say you put in an extra $6,500 a year. That's the current 401k catch-up limit for just 5 more years. If you get a modest, say, 7% return, that could add over $40,000 to your nest egg. That's not insignificant.
Not at all. And let's be real, many people haven't actually sat down and calculated how much money they truly need for retirement. They've heard random numbers, or they're just hoping for the best.
Yeah, the hope strategy. Not ideal.
Delaying gives you that crucial time to do the real financial planning. Figure out what you actually need, look at your income streams, see if it all lines up for the lifestyle you want. It's not just about piling up more money. It's about understanding your needs and making sure you can cover them.
And zooming out, this also connects directly to that huge decision about when to take Social Security. Waiting past 62, for example, can massively impact your long-term income. That's all part of the detailed planning those extra years let you nail down.
Which brings us right to reason number 4. Maximizing those Social Security benefits. It's simple, really. Wait longer to claim and you get a bigger check every month for life.
It's actually surprising how much money people leave on the table here. Something like over 80% of Americans start taking their Social Security before their full retirement age.
Wow, 80%.
Yeah. Which for most people now is 67. That means they are locking in a permanently reduced benefit amount. It's a super common mistake with really big long-term financial consequences.
How much does it increase if you wait?
Well, the mechanism is called delayed retirement credits. For every single year you wait past your full retirement age, up until you turn 70, your benefit goes up by a set percentage. It's typically around 8% per year.
8%. Guaranteed.
Guaranteed, inflation-adjusted return. It's incredibly hard to beat that safely anywhere else. And it compounds for the rest of your life.
So, okay, for someone who's in a stable job, no major health issues pushing them out, delaying could add, what, an extra $500, $600 a month, maybe more, to their Social Security check.
Easily, sometimes significantly more, depending on their earnings history. And that difference, it might seem small month to month, but it can be absolutely critical for making ends meet as costs keep rising.
An extra $600 a month, that's $7,200 a year. That could cover your Medicare premiums, maybe fund a nice trip each year, or just be a crucial buffer for unexpected stuff.
It's a guaranteed return purely on patience. And thinking bigger picture, it's not just a higher number. It fundamentally increases your long-term financial security, your purchasing power. Social Security acts like longevity insurance. It pays out as long as you live. Maximizing it becomes really important as lifespans increase.
Okay, and maybe one of the most important reasons, the 5th one on our delay list, retirement is about way more than just money. It's profoundly about social support, relationships, community.
This is so crucial. We have to consider the loneliness epidemic. It's a growing problem across all age groups, definitely including older
We've
generations.
considered a lot about that.
So it makes you ask, if your entire social life pretty much revolves around your job, your colleagues or your main friends, work events or your main outings, and what happens when you suddenly stop?
Yeah, the bottom drops out.
The risk of isolation is incredibly real. It can severely limit your interactions, and that can lead to higher rates of depression, anxiety, even cognitive decline. Studies show strong social connections are literally as important for how long you live as things like exercise or not smoking.
Wow. As important as not smoking.
That's what some research suggests, yeah. So to counter this, it's really wise to either think about continuing to work, maybe part-time in a role that offers social interaction, or get really involved in regular volunteering, or make concrete plans to spend much more time with family and friends.
You need a plan before you quit.
Exactly. Having those social plans and networks already in place before you retire is key to having a fulfilling life from day one, instead of stepping into this unexpected void. It's about building that new community, that new purpose, before you totally leave the old one behind. Make the transition smoother, richer.
So it's about having a life to retire to, not just retiring from work.
Perfectly put. The social aspect is just as critical as the financial. A rich, active social life contributes massively to well-being and happiness. For many, work provides that built-in structure and social scene that's genuinely hard to replicate without real intentional effort.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and confront some hard realities about retirement finances. Because the rosy picture we sometimes imagine, it can collide hard with the actual costs involved. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, it really begs the question. Have you honestly, realistically calculated what your retirement lifestyle is going to cost? Recent data shows the average retired person in the U.S. is spending around $5,000 a month.
5,000.
That's $60,000 a year. And honestly, with inflation since 2023, hitting things like housing, healthcare, food, that number is probably closer to $65,000 now. And that's just the average. If you live in a high-cost area, it's way more.
And the thing is, right, when you retire, your bills don't just vanish. You still have housing costs, maybe a mortgage, which is why everyone says try to pay it off first. But
Yeah.
definitely property taxes, utilities, repairs, maintenance.
Oh, yeah. Houses always need something.
Always. And you still have costs for entertainment, eating out, hobbies, travel. Retirement isn't the magical disappearance of expenses. If anything, some costs might go up because you have more free time to fill.
And a really striking point is how costs escalate in certain areas as you age. Healthcare, that's the big one. It tends to increase dramatically. You've got Medicare premiums, deductibles, copays, maybe prescription drugs, potentially long-term care down the line.
It adds up fast.
Food certainly isn't getting cheaper, we know that. Transportation costs might go down if you ditch the commute, but you still need a car, insurance, gas, or ride-sharing money. And then there's often this lifestyle creep in retirement.
What do you mean?
Well, maybe your daily latte habit seemed small when you were working, but now you have more free time. Maybe you fill it with more lunches out, more travel, new expensive hobbies, often without really tracking it the same way. You're not just paying for basics. You're often paying for a more active, leisure-focused life. And that can add up way beyond basic needs real quick.
Okay, so we've established retirement is expensive, probably more expensive than a lot of people think. But what about the money people actually have to cover those costs?
Yeah.
Let's talk about, well, the insufficiency of Social Security and typical savings.
Yeah, let's look at Social Security first. The average check for a retired worker is somewhere around, what, $1,900 to $2,000 a month right now?
Right.
Okay, zooming out, living comfortably on just that, it's virtually impossible for most Americans in most parts of the country. You'd need to be in a super low-cost area, own your home free and clear with hardly any upkeep or taxes, and live extremely frugally. That's just not the reality for the vast majority of retirees facing those $5,000, $6,000 monthly expenses we talked about.
Not even close. And then there's the 401k reality check. This is often pretty sobering.
Yeah, brace yourself.
For people aged 60 to 69, the median 401k balance, it's the midpoint, half have more, half have less, is only about $210,000.
$210,000, median.
Yeah. Now, you might see average balances reported higher, like $573,000 or more. But that average gets pulled way up by a tiny fraction of people who saved millions. The median, that tells the story for the typical person. Most people just don't have anywhere near that average amount saved.
And let's put that $210,000 median in perspective. If you use the common 4% withdrawal rule, the idea being you take out 4% a year, so it lasts about 30 years.
Okay.
That gives you just $8,400 per year, or $700 per month.
$700 a month.
Yep. Add that $700 to the average Social Security check of maybe $2,000, you're at $2,700 a month. You're still way short of the $5,000, $6,000 average spending. Way short.
Wow. That is stark.
And it's interesting to think about the draining effect, too. Once you retire that savings balance, it's likely going to start shrinking maybe quite fast because you'll probably be withdrawing more each year than your investments are earning, especially early on.
Right, you're not adding to it anymore.
Exactly. And that constant drain just highlights how critical it is to have a realistic budget, a really clear understanding of what you'll need for the rest of your life. You don't just want to scrape by. You need to know your bills are covered comfortably, you have a cushion for surprises, and you can maintain a decent quality of life for maybe 20, 30, even 40 years if you can't see that clearly. Maybe continuing to work in some capacity makes more sense to build up that cushion.
And if you're listening and thinking, okay, I'll just move somewhere cheap.
Oh.
Well, let's explore that idea of affordable states, because even the supposedly cheapest ones still need surprisingly large savings.
It's true. It's kind of an illusion of affordability sometimes. A striking point is that even in the states often called the cheapest to retire in, the average annual expenses for retirees are still typically somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000.
$60,000 to $80,000, even in the cheapest states.
Yeah. Let's take Kansas, often cited as #1 cheapest. If you manage to save $452,000, which is more than double that median 401k we talked about, and your expenses are $60,000 a year, your savings only last about 7.5 years.
7.5 years.
Yep. Even if you somehow slash your expenses down to $30,000 a year, which would be a very bare bones lifestyle for most, it only stretches things out to 15 years.
That's not a long retirement.
No, and it's a similar story in other affordable places. People talk about Iowa, Minnesota, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Connecticut. Even with over $400,000 saved, you're looking at maybe 7 to 7.5 years of coverage at average spending levels. It immediately makes you ask, okay, what happens then? What happens when you're 75, 80, and the money's gone?
That's terrifying.
It is. And this grim outlook is a big reason why so many Americans are looking at moving abroad for retirement.
The expat trend.
Exactly. In many parts of the world, certain countries in Latin America, Southeast Asia, Southern Europe, that $60,000 a year could let you live like royalty. Or you could live very comfortably on just $15,000 or $20,000 a year. That stretches your savings dramatically, often with a higher quality of life, good health care, vibrant communities.
But there's got to be a catch, right?
There's always a catch. And the inevitable one here is that the cost of living in those popular expat spots, it's expected to rise, too, as they get more popular, more developed.
Gentrification goes global.
Basically. Plus, currency fluctuations can eat away at your savings unexpectedly. So while moving abroad is an attractive option now, it's not a static fix. You still need careful long-term planning.
So, zooming out, looking ahead.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sobering thought, isn't it? That maybe in the next decade or two, retirement as we've known it,
Yeah.
Stopping work completely and living comfortably might just become impossible for the average person, especially with all the debt, personal and national, and wages not keeping up.
It might realistically only be an option for, say, the top 10% of earners. It could become a relic of a bygone era for most people.
Okay. Wow.
Ah.
Those are some really stark financial realities.
Yeah.
Definitely stuff to think about, hidden beneath the, glossy retirement brochures.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears slightly now. Let's talk about some real-world financial wisdom that kind of goes beyond just retirement planning, applies to big life decisions generally. We had this really fascinating, spontaneous chat recently with someone who shared an incredibly vivid personal story about navigating the housing market.
Yeah.
And it offers huge lessons.
Yeah. This was great. This individual, really short person, they bought a house in Orlando, right at what they called peak horse time, the absolute top of the market a couple of years ago when everyone was going crazy buying houses.
Like peak frenzy.
Exactly. And almost immediately, they started facing rapidly rising costs. Their homeowner's insurance literally doubled in a year. Property taxes shot up. And then came the unexpected maintenance nightmares.
Oh, no. Like what?
They mentioned needing new walls, a whole new roof, major electrical work, stuff the previous owners had clearly just ignored or patched over badly. These were those hidden costs that just drain your bank account and turn the dream home into a money pit.
So what happened? What was the outcome?
Well, after pouring tens of thousands into renovations just to make the place decent and safe, they ended up having to move for a new job. And they sold the house for only a tiny, tiny profit. Barely broke even after all the work.
Hmm.
And they also found out the rental market there was super tough. They couldn't have even rented it out for enough to cover their high mortgage payment. They felt completely trapped, couldn't easily sell without losing money, couldn't rent it for profit.
That's a nightmare scenario.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the crucial insight they got from this whole painful experience was really profound. Don't chase the market. Doesn't matter if it's houses, stocks, trendy crypto, whatever.
Right.
When everyone else is in a buying frenzy, when there's that hype, that is often precisely the wrong time to jump in, because that's usually when prices are at their absolute peak and are due for a fall.
Resist the FOMO.
Exactly. Resist the FOMO, the fear of missing out. They really emphasize the importance of patience. Waiting for the right moment, even when it feels hard, even when it seems like everyone else is getting ahead. Waiting, they stressed, is just so much better for your long-term financial health and your peace of mind. It's about making calculated, rational decisions, not getting swept up in emotion.
That story, even though it's about real estate, it perfectly illustrates these broader lessons about big financial decisions. Lessons that are absolutely critical for retirement planning, too. It shows how many people, maybe especially younger generations, bought into that dream of home ownership, maybe fueled by Instagram or seeing friends buy, without fully grasping all the practical financial realities.
And it really begs the question of doing proper due diligence, right?
Totally.
Their experience highlighted some practical advice that applies to any big purchase. Like, be super wary of houses that were rentals for years because the owners might have skimped on upkeep to save money.
Cut corners.
Yeah. And older homes, however charming, can have massive hidden problems, like their example. A house built in 1956 that had never had its roof replaced despite tons of hurricanes. That's just a ticking time bomb waiting to cost you a fortune. Thorough inspections, understanding the property's history, it's essential.
And the big revelation for them, which really challenges a common belief, was that myth of locked-in housing costs.
Right. Your mortgage payment might be fixed, but
But their monthly costs were not truly locked in. Insurance doubled.
Yeah.
Property taxes skyrocketed. Things they couldn't control turned their expected fixed cost into a rapidly rising variable one. And in that kind of situation, renting, surprisingly, can offer more financial flexibility. You can shop around, move if costs go up too much. You're not stuck in one place.
yeah, renting gives you options. So zooming out, this whole anecdote, it directly highlights these crucial principles for retirement planning too, right? Avoid emotional financial decisions. Do your homework, thorough due diligence on expenses, income, everything. Understand all the potential costs, not just the obvious ones. And know when to be patient, when to wait for better conditions. It's a powerful reminder that financial wisdom isn't siloed. What you learn in one area applies across your whole financial life. Patience and prudence, often your best allies.
Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground. We've navigated the really compelling arguments for retiring as soon as you possibly can, and also the equally strong reasons for strategically delaying that huge step.
Yeah, both sides have very valid points.
From the absolutely irreplaceable value of time and wanting freedom from burnout, all the way to the stark financial realities of rising costs, economic uncertainty, and just how important those social connections are, it's crystal clear there is no simple one-size-fits-all answer here.
Not at all. The best decision about when to retire, it is deeply uniquely personal. It really hinges on your specific financial situation, how prepared you are, your health, your social needs, your network, how much you actually like or dislike your job, and ultimately what your definition of a fulfilling, meaningful life actually is.
So many variables.
Each one needs careful, honest thought.
It really is a complex puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, wrapping this up, given this complex financial landscape we've talked about today and the, frankly, evolving challenges facing future retirees everywhere, here's something to think about. How will you personally redefine what a successful and secure future looks like for yourself?
Good question.
How will you make sure you have your own profound sense of fulfillment, purpose, connection, regardless of the exact moment you choose or maybe you're forced to step away from traditional work? It's a good question. Definitely worth pondering long and hard. Because that answer, it could really shape the entire rest of your life.